I see the hearts floating already here. For Dave, the hearts are going towards you. They're not coming towards me right now.
I'm not sure, Naveen. And if they're into smart people, they think you've got them.
All right. We will get started very, very soon. We're just waiting for everybody to come on into the Zoom room so we can get started.
And can we chat with everyone or just hosts and panelists?
Everybody's going to be listening to you, and then they won't be on the video, but however, they'll be able to ask questions in the Q&A, and they will be able to answer.
Oh, in the Q&A window. Okay, cool. I'll open that up.
But Lisa will be asking us the questions from the Q&A window.
Okay, that works.
Yep. So that is a good thing to bring up now before we get started, that if you do have a question, you can put it in the Q&A for both Dave and Naveen. Well, once again, welcome. We will get started very shortly. We're just waiting for everybody who's going to attend to come on in the Zoom room.
So Lisa, we give everybody 2 more minutes. At 3:05 is when we get started.
Very good. 3:05, you got it. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. We'll get started soon.
While we are waiting, the question is already there for you to answer while we are waiting for other people to join. Who is your hairdresser? Who does your hair?
You know, that's a good question, because my hair is optimized so I can glue electrodes onto my brain to see what it's doing and then make it look amazing by pulling it into a ponytail. So it's done by whatever Amazon website provided a rubber band so I could look halfway decent. Because I am a biohacker first and foremost. The hair is just a side effect.
Well, there you go, Martin. So Martin, your question is answered. It is a rubber band who does his hair.
Pretty much.
All right.
Of course, it's a gluten-free rubber band, I should say.
Well, there's a gluten-free rubber band. So, and Martin loves it. Martin loves the gluten-free diet, looks like to me.
I'm glad we could get that one out of the way.
Yeah, it's a very important question.
All right. I think we got about 30 more seconds.
One more minute and we are good to go after that.
Yes.
While we are waiting, does anybody have any questions of anybody, Lisa's here or anybody? This is a great time to ask anything that doesn't matter.
Even if it does matter, let's start them going so we can look through and start asking questions. So if you're in, how do we meet? Why don't you tell them that story, Naveen? That's a good warm-up.
Oh my God, that's a long story. So we're going to Dave and I met at a XPRIZE event. I don't think he remembers it, and he was walking around with a bunch of electrodes, and he wanted to put them on my tummy and my arm for me to be able to feel that I can take a small weight and feel like I'm lifting 200 pounds. And then we just became friends, and it's been almost a decade now. Dave, and I have been together since the beginning of launching Viome 7 years ago. So I think we have been just for longest time being just friends, advisors and investors in each other's companies and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, that's accurate. I do remember turning up the current all the way on the electrical machine and watching this look on your face. And it was, I was doing it to everyone. It's just kind of walking around saying, do you want to put an inch on your bicep? But you were the first guy to go, yeah, roll up your sleeve, see what you got. So that's kind of how it works. And I just got to say, guys, you always have this kind of question, like, are these real people? Are they just saying stuff? Naveen does Viome. I know him very well. He does Viome because it matters. It matters to him. That's the only motivation there. And it's the same with me. We could both be doing all sorts of other stuff, but this is stuff that's actually meaningful. And so I just full support for Viome and what Naveen's doing, and just his work in the world is pretty impressive.
All right, so Lisa, we're going to get going now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to do a proper introduction of the two of you because this is fantastic to have you both here on a webinar. This is the science of aging. We are so happy to have not only Naveen Jain, CEO of Viome and entrepreneur, but also special guest Dave Asprey, father of biohacking and American author. So I'm just going to let you guys take it away, and we can come back in and do some Q&A a little bit later on.
Good. So, Dave, I was going to just get us started and set the stage for the audience, right?
Okay.
Everyone you and I have spoken to, you ask them, do you want to live to be 200 years? And almost everyone would say, sure, I want to live to be 200
No,
years.
they don't, Naveen. They're afraid that...
Why.
Okay,
I know,
tell me why.
I know why. The
All right.
people who don't want to live to be 200 years is because they believe that they're going to live the last 100 years in a ventilator in a life that they don't want to live. No one wants to live to be 200 years if they are going to be spending even the last 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or 200 years of last years sitting, essentially living a life of in a vegetable state, right? They don't want to live a life that they cannot enjoy. So what people really want are really looking for a long health span, not just aging. They're looking for biological aging. What they're really looking for is how do they actually live as long as they do, whether it is 80 years, 100 years, or 500 years, is live healthy and to be able to do things that they want. And that brings, to me, I was just doing, I think I sent you the chart that was really, really interesting, is when you ask people when they age, what are they most scared of, or what do they want when they want to live long? Number one thing that was clear was cognitive health, the brain health.
Yes.
They do not want ever to lose their memories, their brain. And reason to me is, what makes us who we are as human beings is our memories and our experiences. If we lose that, we are nobody. I mean, if you think about it, right? Today, we have technology to obviously replace our knees. We replace our shoulder. We get old, we replace our hips. We can replace our heart. We can replace everything. And we still believe we are Dave and Naveen. But when we lose our memory, we are no longer who we were. And that's where people say, I don't want to live anymore, right? So cognitive health or brain health is the number one concern. Do you hear the same thing, Dave?
Yes. Most people, if you had a choice between not knowing what was going on, forgetting your name, and even like the other discomforts of aging, most people would rather have their brain first, their energy second, and then the physical stuff third in terms of priorities. But I'm not into making trade-offs here. The goal, to be really clear, we are building humans who look and feel like we do, or even better when we're 120. That's part of anti-aging. It's not about living as long as you can as a hunched husk of a person who can't remember why the car keys are in the refrigerator. That's not the future. That's not what we're talking about. So your picture of being old is not the picture of what we're building. And it starts with knowing what's happening inside your cells, and then what are they doing, and then going all the way up to what's the speed of my brain. Do I have an 18-year-old brain speed or a 50-year-old brain speed? By the way, mine's 18.
But we're going to come to that in the science of underlying aging in a second. I was just trying to set the stage of what is aging, and then I'm going to come back and what is health and how do you develop the healthy aging, right? So to me, the aging really comes down to is having the fundamental ability for your body to be able to adapt, to be able to live and change to the underlying stresses that everyday life you get. And those are physical stress, psychological stress, the social stress, right? And if your body is able to deal with those, you are a healthy person. And in my opinion, right, I am 63, soon to be 64, but my biological age is down to 50. And I imagine when I'm 70 years old chronologically and my biological age is 40, now it doesn't mean I'm not 70. but I have the same energy, the same physical body, the same thing that I could do like a 40-year-old. And to me, that is the aging we are talking about, right, Dave?
It's exactly the aging. And it kind of breaks our picture of it. Like, what's the point of a retirement home if you don't need to retire because you're on your 8th career and you're just having a good time?
Yeah.
By the way, how many careers are you on, Naveen? This is your 7th, right?
This is my 7th one, Dave, and I can tell you that I love every minute of it. To me, we'll come back to it, that what is that science of aging and how do you actually stop from aging? And when I say aging, I mean biological aging. You do not want to stop aging, guys. The only time you stop aging is when you're 6 feet under. That is not what we're asking about here. We're talking about living 6 foot above. We're talking about living on a warm island, beautiful warm island where you can really enjoy life, right? And have that energy. So it's not that when I grew up in India, I always wanted to think that I want to die on a peak of Himalayas. And it wasn't there because I thought that was somehow it'll make me how would I say, a guru, right? It was to me that I'm able to climb the Mount Everest on the last day of my life to be able to die there.
It's I've actually been to that mountain you're talking about. that was the mountain where I first had yak butter tea. That was the inspiration for me to start Bulletproof. And
Yes.
Same thing. You want to be on your final day at least as powerful as you are today. That's the impetus behind biohacking. That's why I'm just so incredibly excited about Viome since the first time we talked about the concept before you were shipping. Like, you're going to tell me what's going on in my gut finally? And now it's way beyond the gut. But I don't know how to do all the anti-aging stuff that I understand if I can't measure where I am. Not just from aging, but all the other stuff that stacks up to become part of energy production. It doesn't even have to be about aging. Look, I've had chronic fatigue syndrome. I've weighed 300 pounds. They diagnosed me with arthritis when I was 14. And I spent 702 hours in the gym trying to get thin. That did not work. I didn't lose a pound after 18 months of working out 6 days a week for an hour and a half. So it's energy that matters most. You have energy, you can stay young. But how do you know how you're going to age if you don't have enough energy? Well, first you got to get the energy, then you address aging. And it's both. And you got to be able to measure both.
I think you're too fast. So let's get there. So I think I have, Dave, over the last 7 years, having analyzed over 500,000 samples, we have finally.
How many times did you pee? How did you do that?
Oh, God. Not 500,000
my
samples, 500,000.
That was impressive for a minute there, Naveen.
So 500,000 people we analyzed. In fact, we published the paper that is really interesting. And what it showed was some very interesting thing. There are 2 things that actually cause aging. And we're going to come back and describe to you what to do about them, right? Number 1 is inflammation in your body. The chronic inflammation is what causes your body to age, right? So that is just remember, it's called inflammation. Inflammation means your inflammation is going up with aging. It doesn't have to, but we'll get to that in a second here. That is the root cause of aging. As you age and your inflammation in body is rising, guess what happens? If your immune system is not working properly, you get sick often, you catch infection often, your bone strength goes down. All the stuff that you talk about, wrinkles, they don't come because somehow your body has something that says, oh, you're turning 55. Let me start wrinkle your body. It is a side effect and the byproduct of your cells are no longer producing the stuff that they were capable of doing when they were 30 or 40. Whether it is your collagen, whether it is actually renewing those cells, it's all of those things matter, right? So you need to know what is it that your body is currently doing before you can do anything, right? So our job is to understand underlying things, what is going on, and we'll come back to that in a second. So number 1 is looking at the inflammation in the body. Number 2 really is, how do we provide more of what the body is lacking as your body is aging. So there's certain things are going to be depleted. Guess what? Our job is to start to understand what things are being depleted and refill them, so that even though aging causes a leaky bucket, and if you can every day refill that bucket, you will always be full. You'll always have the body and the energy that you need by refilling it. So I want you to comment on that. Then I'm going to go back to the next point.
One of my books, not the one about aging, was about the brain, and it appears that it's that same energy production you just talked about, that the teeter-totter, the balancing between inflammation and electricity. Less inflammation, more electricity. More electricity, better brain. And it's that simple.
Right. So Dave, as I want to go along, and I want to, I have come up with this, just like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I've come up with what's the nature, what's the universal hierarchy of needs for longevity and health, right? And I want to describe each 5 steps, just like the 5 steps for the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What are those 5 things? And we're going to go back and forth on each one of them. So at the bottom most, the thing that you need to stop aging and live healthy is nutrition, the proper nutrition. Without that, nothing matters. So I want to spend a few minutes here. Remember, you can have a Ferrari. Unless you put the right fuel in that car, it cannot drive. So the proper nutrition is the number one thing. Nothing matters what happens. You can have everything you want. You can be in gym for 8 hours a day, but if you do not give the right nutrients to the body cannot function. The body needs the nutrition to function. And then, you and I can debate about what is right nutrients for each person. So one of the things that really has lacking in the science side so far in longevity has been, everyone is looking for elixir of life. Everyone is looking for one silver bullet that they can just drink or eat, and somehow magically they become young. They think there has to be one thing that everyone needs. And what we have learned, and Dave, you obviously been doing this for longest time as a biohacker, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for someone else. That means if same thing that is good for one person may not be good for someone else. So just you read somewhere in a magazine, or you hear your neighbor lost weight because they ate a lot of spinach and garbanzo beans. And just because you can eat garbanzo beans and kale every day, you may actually gain weight. And that's a full thing you need to know. There is no such thing as universal healthy food. Let me repeat. There is no such thing as universal healthy food. However, there are universal unhealthy food, but there is no universal healthy food. And what I mean by that is, one man's food can be another man's poison. And we can give you examples after examples, Dave. You know that, right? If you have very high sulfide production in your gut, the sulfide production causes, inflammation. But sulfide cannot be produced unless you give it sulfate. What are the food that contains high sulfate? Broccoli, Brussels sprout, that people think are really healthy, can actually harm you if you have high sulfide production. Avocado, people think it's absolutely the best thing you can do. Vitamin B3, everyone should take avocado, everyone should take vitamin B3. Guess what? Those are exactly the things you should not be taking when you have high uric acid production, period, right? So idea is spinach can be good for some people, and it can actually almost 50% of the people cannot digest spinach because it has a very high amount of oxalate. And if your microbiome in your gut cannot digest oxalate, cannot metabolize oxalate, despite Popeye telling you that spinach is good for everyone, Popeye was not the scientist. Don't believe Popeye. Love your tattoo on your arm, bro.
It's not oxalate, it's caffeine, just to be clear. But the old Popeye spinach thing, it's total nonsense because you don't get iron from spinach.
So that, on the nutrition side, before I go to the next step, I want you, since you are the father of biohacking, what's your thoughts on nutrition?
When you look at nutrition, there's two things that you're looking for. One of them is building blocks so that you can build protein, you can build enzymes, you can build cell membranes. Okay, these are usable things that your body can take in their existing form and then reassemble them inside the body. And then there's energy. And energy is just calories. And they are not the same. And when you get these people who say, oh, it's just about calories in, calories out, well, no, because different calories burn at different rates, and the calories themselves are signals into the body to do something or to not do something. And we all instinctively know that, say, half a pound of corn syrup taken at midnight might have something different than the same number of calories of chicken breast in the middle of the day. And it's a complete different biological picture, yet they're the same calories. So calories aren't the only thing. It's what are the calories made of as fuel, because that's a signal. But if you get the right signal and you have no minerals and you have none of the right lipids to make those delicate membranes that allow you to make electricity, it doesn't work very well. So in a perfect world, your nutrition is shaped so that you have every trace mineral, you have every one of the other important components, all the proteins, all the peptides, all the right lipids, so that your body can do whatever it wants to do. And then just enough energy for fuel and not a ton of extra energy. But what they teach us is that everyone needs the same thing, which is not true. And until just the very last, really probably 20 years, no one even paid attention to, well, if I put it in my mouth, they say, I'm going to burn it. You don't burn it, you feed it to a bacteria, and then the bacteria poop is what we use. And you've shed more light on what's actually going on in there than anyone else, because you wouldn't know if you eat this carbohydrate called a prebiotic fiber.
Yep.
Your gut bacteria turn it into a type of fat called butyrate. And that kind of fat is what powers your body. It's really good for you. It puts you in ketosis, but you ate a carb. So it's complex, but I will tell you, some people, you don't eat that because it's your kryptonite. But for the next person, that's not kryptonite for you. Something else is. But right now, we all just eat a bunch of stuff. We eat the rainbow, but you don't know what parts of the rainbow harm you and what parts fuel you. So you've got to do that detective work for yourself. I went on restrictive diets for 2 years to test each category of food. It's called elimination diet. It was the only way you could do it in 1999. Now I can do it in a couple of weeks with a test.
Yeah, so Dave, that is really interesting that, 7 years ago when we started the company, that was fundamentally the problem we set out to solve. Can we actually bring science to understand exactly what is happening in your body? Can we start to analyze the body from head to toe? And we literally meant it, right? Is we look at when you put something in your mouth, what's the first thing that happens? Your saliva in your mouth. People think it's just liquid. Guess what? There are trillions of microbes in your mouth. They get the first shot at actually pre-digesting your food. And I'm not sure, Dave, about you. My mom will always tell me the same thing: eat slowly and chew your food. And I was like, Mom, are you worried that somehow I'm going to choke up on that food? Well, it turns out she was really a scientist. She realized that when you eat slowly and chew your food, your microbiome, your oral microbiome is actually pre-digesting the food, and that allows that food to have the nutritional thing that can be absorbed. And number two, it sends the signal to the body about what is coming down. So when you drank something sweet, you ate something sweet, it is sending the signal to the pancreas. Start releasing the insulin. The sweet stuff is coming. And guess what happens? Now, in this world today, people say, oh, I'm really smart. I drink non-sugar stuff. I drink the Diet Coke. Guess what? When your oral microbiome detects sweetness, they don't know it's not a sugar. They sense the sweetness. They tell the pancreas to start releasing insulin. There is no glucose for insulin to do anything with. Now you have all these excess insulin in your body. And guess what happens? You become insulin resistant. You start to become diabetic. You start to gain weight. And that's because you're drinking the Diet Coke, right? So point I'm trying to make is that your body was designed in a way, so your oral microbiome, so we actually analyze your oral microbiome and tell you, when looking at your saliva, what is that your oral microbes are doing? How much of nitrate are they producing? Remember, people may think what's happening in your mouth stays in the mouth. Nope, it goes everywhere. And now we are learning, Dave, that obviously you have known intuitively that your oral health is actually just not the health of your gum or getting cavities or having bad breath. It actually is the #1 signal for diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer, and many other chronic diseases actually start with the imbalance of oral microbiome. Right? Now, then we analyze your gut microbiome. And I think everyone who's here probably knows about gut microbiome. What happened there? It turns out there is, if you were to Google any disease you want, pick a name you want, cancer and microbiome, diabetes and microbiome, depression and microbiome, addiction and microbiome, and any type of things you want, Alzheimer and microbiome, Parkinson's and microbiome. It turns out every one of these diseases are caused or are actually influenced by your gut microbiome, including cancer therapy. You can predict whether immunotherapy is going to work or not based on your gut. When you have a leaky gut or when you have leaky gum because your gums are bleeding, suddenly you have these microbes going into your blood. What does the immune system do? It causes inflammation. Then they go to your blood-brain barrier. It causes the inflammation. It becomes permeable. Now you have infection in the brain. Glial cells start to release amyloid beta to protect it. And suddenly now these enough of the infection in the brain causes the neurodegenerative diseases. That is one theory. Other theory is that your oral membrane, your gums are actually start to bleed, and the P. gingivalis starts to release something called gingipain. And that starts to actually now cause more inflammation. And that is when you analyze the pathology of people who have Alzheimer. There's a tremendous amount of gingipain in the pathology. There is a tremendous amount of production that is coming from these organisms that actually cause that infection. Right? Then we measure finger prick blood to analyze all of your cytokines. And your favorite, this is something that you taught me on day one, mitochondria. We analyze your mitochondria, right? So we look at all the mitochondrial gene expression, all of the gut microbial gene expression, oral microbial gene expression, looking at the difference, how it interacts with the host, right? And that is how we come up. Here are the foods that are good for you, and here is why. Here are the foods that are bad for you. Here is why. Here are the nutrients your body does not need, and here is what actually it needs. It needs 22 milligram of elderberry. It needs 79 milligram of amylase. It needs 27 milligram of berberine. And we literally tell you every vitamin, mineral, herbs, digestive enzyme, amino acid, peptides, probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and we make them on demand for each individual. There is no pre-made stuff. We literally make the powder for each individual every single month, and we ship it to them now. So before I go to the next step on the hierarchy of needs, I want to stay here. And Dave, I want you to tell me, since you have been doing it for 30 years, and you have now watched us for 7 years.
Well, one of the things that I really have enjoyed over the last 20 years of starting out by running an anti-aging nonprofit group in Palo Alto, California, in my mid-20s. I was so tired. I was basically old when I was young. So I learned from people who were in their 80s what they were doing, and they taught me how to get my energy back. So since then, I've just loved opening 50 or 70 bottles of pills every morning to get one of each one out. It's brought a lot of joy to my life, Naveen. So what I like even more than that is having a custom-made packet It's to the point that I looked at building my own technology just to do like pill sorting and counting, but it just doesn't work out. So then you come along and say, well, it's not enough to just make a custom vitamin for someone. Let's do it based on a whole set of AI driven measurements of what's happening in your mouth, in your gut, in your mitochondria. That's the most efficient thing I can think of. So it saves a huge amount of time and energy. And it's the ultimate, just tell me what to do. Because my guess is that most people who took their time to listen to you and me today, they're interested in anti-aging, but they don't want to become experts like you or me. And they have other things to be experts in. So this is the ultimate, just tell me what to do in order to handle my nutrition on it, because it's not just the same nutrition for everyone. And this really makes sense when you think about it. If you're like me, I'm 6'4", I'm 200 pounds, 8% body fat right now. And if you were to give me the same vitamins that you would sell to an 18-year-old soccer champion woman, right? Our nutritional needs are just not even in the same universe. She's more athletic than I am, clearly different sexes, different ages, different everything. But you go to the store and it's the same vitamin. And that doesn't make sense. It means I'm getting underdosed and maybe she's getting overdosed. So custom making this just makes sense. And that whole idea of I'm looking for, how do you get the exact precise signal into the body to make it do what you want? And it turns out too much nutrient or not enough nutrient is a signal. And I talk about that signaling in my latest book that's just coming out now, because getting the signal in to tell your body to do what you want, that's the trick. It's not about working harder. It's not about doing everything in the world of anti-aging. Just do what works best and then stop. It's so much easier that way.
So Dave, first of all, I want to, I read the, obviously the copy of your book. And to me, I would recommend that everyone who has not, can you show the cover of that book, young man?
There you go. Smarter, not harder.
Smarter, not harder. Now, imagine who does not want to work smarter? I mean, I don't have enough hours in the day. So I need the biohacking. I need to be able to get the same thing done in few hours, not work 8 hours to do the same thing, right? And to me, your book is really the Bible. When it comes to actually learning the underlying human biology, it is the Bible that you have learned over the last 30 years of experimentation of what to do. And you're not suggesting that everyone does the same thing, because as you state, everyone's needs are different. You just need to know what is it you need, what you need for your body today, and that may change tomorrow. So one of the things that Dave, we fundamentally looked at the human body very differently was everyone was focused on looking at your genes and your DNA. And that was the whole thing. I can make something personalized to you by looking at your DNA. And it's really simple once you explain to someone that your DNA never changes. So if you were to do my DNA test today, and then I become diabetic, my DNA is still the same. Now I gain 200 pounds, my DNA is still the same. Now I get heart disease, my DNA is still the same. Now no one can tell you, hey, your DNA is the same, eat the same thing that your DNA tells you. Somebody was going to say, wait a sec, you gain 200 pounds, you're diabetic, your heart disease, you better change something. Guess what happens now? Now I die. And 10 years after I die, you do my DNA test again. Guess what? They're still the same. You can still look at the DNA of a dinosaur, right? If DNA can't even tell you you're dead or alive, how will it ever tell you you are healthy or sick? And it was really simple for us as a layman to understand that, hey, your genes don't change, but your gene expression is always changing. And a lot of people say, I don't understand this scientific mumbo jumbo gene expression. Well, guess what? Let's look at it from a very simple perspective. Every part of our body, from my hair to my kidney, to my heart, my skin, my eyes, my nail, every part of my body is identical DNA. It comes from the same cell. Remember, zygote. One zygote splits and makes hair. So why is it I don't have the eyes growing on my finger and the nails growing on my head? Same DNA. Depending on what genes are expressed, overexpressed, what genes are underexpressed, what genes are not expressed, makes the same DNA do different things. And that means DNA is like an alphabet. and RNA is the story you are writing. So we realize that if we're going to find out what your body needs today versus what it needed 6 months ago, is to by looking at your gene expression. So we focus on what your genes are expressing so we can tell you, hey, this is what your body needs now. And 6 months later, but your body may be expressing something different. And then we redo and rethink and come back and say, now your body had changed and here is what you need now. And we did the same thing with microbes. Every single company that does a microbiome testing tells you what organisms are in your mouth or your gut. And think about it. Same organism can produce something good in one environment and can produce the same organism can produce something bad in the different environment. Just like a human being, you take a human being, put them in a good environment, good behavior, put them in a bad environment, the bad behavior, and the organisms behave identical. The same organism you were talking about eating prebiotic and generating butyrate is called Akkermansia mucin. The same organism in one environment can actually be beneficial to you, and other environment, the same organism is the number one reason for MS, causing multiple sclerosis, right? Same one. So it is literally, it starts to produce toxin when it finds itself in a different environment and causes massive amount of inflammation, making your gut permeable. So the thing is, what we do is we look at what your microbes are producing. Are they producing LPS, that's inflammatory? Are they producing ammonia? Are they producing biofilm? Or they are producing good things like short chain fatty acids? Are they producing the nutrients like vitamin K? So we look at what good things they're doing. To think of your gut microbiome and oral microbiome as your medicine chest. Depending on what is going on, we feed it a very different nutrients, and your medicine chest gets completely changed. So now it has what you need. So we are constantly reassembling your medicine chest by underlying, analyzing things that are going on. So Dave, your turn.
It's really interesting that each cell in your body, except for red blood cells, has these little mitochondria in them. And we always say, oh, they're the power plant of the cell. And we've all heard that in 7th grade biology. But it turns out they're really sensors of the environment. Like, are there nutrients? Is it sunny? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it scary? Is it safe? And they're trying to get a sense of the world, but they're dumb little bacteria embedded in our cells. So first they sense, then they make a decision. And they can decide to make electricity. They can decide to make inflammation, as we talked about already. They can also decide to make melatonin. They can make your sex hormones. They can make serotonin. And they're onboard manufacturing plants. But what was missing from the aging picture was that we figured that out a while ago, but we didn't understand that the bacteria in your mouth, in your stomach, throughout your body, they do the same thing, but they have way more flexible manufacturing because they have a lot more genes than we do. So you can make almost anything you want in your gut, and you can feed yourself the right food. That's what Viome does. It tells you what stuff to eat, and potentially even introduce the right probiotics, which is another thing. We custom print probiotics so that then you can have the manufacturing stuff in your gut that makes what your body needs: more antioxidants, less antioxidants. And then it becomes really complex and interesting, and that's why we need AI for it, because the bacteria in your gut and in your mouth, they talk to the ancient bacteria, the mitochondria in your cells. And when I say they talk via 2 and maybe 3 different mechanisms we know about. We know that they talk with chemicals because they send chemicals back and forth. That's pretty straightforward. So gut bacteria makes something, mitochondria notices it's there, their communication. They also talk with photons. They actually make light. People don't notice your DNA makes 1 photon about every 40 seconds, but your mitochondria make a substantially larger number of photons. The body doesn't waste electricity. The whole point is the body is elegantly lazy. It only does what it needs to stay alive. So it's making this for a reason. But the bacteria in your gut make a lot more light. You can't see it without physics tools, but they do make a little bit of light. So one signaling mechanism is bacteria in your gut talk to the bacteria embedded in your cells as power plants in manufacturing, using light molecules, and they probably also do it with magnetic fields, although we're not certainly sure about that one. But it's super interesting because you say, well, I think I fixed it because I took a bacteria that makes a certain thing my body needs because Viome put it in my pills for me. And then I took some of the right foods. Maybe you said eat artichokes because they're rich in something that's a fermentable fiber. Right? Okay, this is great. But then if that bacteria talks to the bacteria in your body and it doesn't do what you want, you wouldn't have it done, which is why looking at the mitochondrial signaling, which is part of what you're doing at Viome, plus what's going in the gut and the mouth, and looking at all the different systems in the body at the same time to figure out what is the system doing instead of what is one little piece of the system doing. That's been revolutionary. That's how biohackers, so hackers look at it. You don't have to understand every little thing in there to see what it's doing. So you're looking at, well, what's it doing? Let's change something and see what else it does. It turns out we can change it pretty quickly. And the end result is you have an aging score. And there's a Viome aging score, and it correlates nicely with aging scores that I see from some of the top researchers in the world, a lot of whom I've interviewed on my podcast. And there's something called the Horvath clock, and it's one well-established way. And then there's a bunch of other things called methylation clocks, and there's the Viome score, which is using a different set of understandings, but comes up with similar results. So you basically can spit in a tube and do a little prick, and you say, oh yeah, now I know how old my body is versus how old I actually am physically. And as an example, depending on which of these scores you like to believe in, and there is a range. No one can tell you this is the only one to look at least not yet. You may be the first one that says, this is
actually no, Dave, we don't do that. We actually, we analyze your saliva, your finger prick blood, and touch of a stool, we give you your biological age, we give you your immune health, we give you your gut health, your oral health, your cardiac health, your cognitive health. And we give you all these scores, and then we give you a whole bunch of detail around it, your dental health, your gum health. And if you want to talk dirty, we tell you your LPS production, your Petrison production, your biofilm production.
And I don't want to say you do what those guys are doing. What I'm saying is the Viome age score is a measure of age, and those are different measures of age, but they line up, right? So you can look at aging through many different lenses. You mentioned your biological age was 50. Chronologically, you're 63. And you don't look a day over 62, so that's good. I'm just kidding. You can only say that because we're friends. And I am.
So do you? You look 62 too, but you're probably 55.
Exactly. See, so guys, I'm 50 chronologically, but I identify as 27% because I'm going to live to at least 100 years. So when I think about it, I'm actually 27%, but my labs tell you that I'm about 39. Right. So about 11 years younger. And if you're listening to this going, what the heck? You can do the same thing. In fact, you could probably shift your biological age in 1 year. If you got a Viome test at the start, get your score, you do all this stuff that the test tells you to do using AI and hundreds of thousands of other samples. You said 500,000 earlier that have gone into the learning system. You're going to see a difference. And it's actually pretty easy compared to what people think of anti-aging. Like, I'm going to get a facial. Like that's not the same thing, right?
So Dave, I'm going to switch a topic here. Just want to go very quickly because I think we're running out of time. We haven't gotten to all the 5 things here. So we talked about nutrition. The second thing your body needs is stress management, is stress reduction. Remember, when you are stressed, your body goes into the sympathetic mode. What does it mean? Fight or flight response. So anytime there is a stress, whether it is stress, your boss is stressing you out at work, whether it is your spouse that is stressing out at home, and whether it could be a whole bunch of other factors that are stressing you out. Guess what? You need to get rid of that stress, because when your fight or flight response, 2 things happen. Your digestive system shuts down. It's non-essential. Remember when we were living in the savannas of Africa, the only time we were stressed because we were chased by a tiger. Your body thought, wait a sec, don't worry about digesting your food because you're going to be lunch for someone else. So it stops the digestion system. It stops the immune system. And that's the reason why people who are stressed get sick often, because your immune system is no longer working. So the way to do that is 3 things. One is what we have learned culturally or sometimes religiously. We pray and we do gratitude before we eat. Why do we do that? So that we can move the body and your brain from sympathetic mode to parasympathetic mode. That means you're no longer in fight or flight response. Anytime you can bring that compassion Anytime you can bring giving, anytime you care about someone else, your body shifts into the parasympathetic mode. And now your digestive system and immune system is working. And that's one reason why people always do the gratitude before they eat, right? The second thing is breath work, the breathing, meditation, all of them are there to cope with that stress, right? And that's a stress management. The third layer of living long is exercise. Now, I would never tell you to be a gym rat. No one needs to work out 2 hours and 4 hours in the gym. It needs either you go to the upgrade lab, get the damn thing done in 30 minutes, or if you don't have access to the upgrade lab, guess what? Go for a hike, go for a walk for 45 minutes to an hour, and you get your heart rate up, and that allows your body to actually now have heart muscles. That means now it can pump the same amount of blood, more oxygen. Your lungs are actually now have more oxygen to give to the whole body, and it rejuvenates your body when you do. It needs just 45 minutes of a good fast walk, and then you can get there. Preferably go to the upgrade lab. I've done that and love it, love it, love it, love it. The fourth thing is sleep. Now, here, the quality matters, not the quantity. So when you hear everybody needs to get 8 hours of sleep, they are wrong. What you really need is a good about hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes of deep sleep and about similar amount of REM sleep. I use Aura, I use my Apple Watch. Under my mattress, I have a breathing sleep pad. I measure everything. And sometime in 5 hours, I can get about hour and 45 minutes of deep sleep, hour and 45 minutes of REM sleep. I am as good as new. Every day in the morning, I have not used alarm clock for 30 years. I go to bed by 9 and I get up at 4 and I just feel good. Right? Now, last part is purpose. People who live a life of purpose live 10 to 15 years longer than the people who have no purpose. Remember, finding a purpose in life when you living for something. So ask yourself, what are you willing to die for, and then live for it? What would you do in your life if you had everything? And if you do that today, you actually would not only benefit the humanity, you will also live long. So 5 things: nutrition. Next thing, stress management, exercise, sleep, and finding the purpose. And that's really the hierarchy of needs for living longer. So Dave, you get.
It's funny, stress and exercise in my work are the same thing, but stress can be something besides exercise. So all exercise is adding stress to the system on purpose. And there's a new concept that works really, really well with what Vyam's doing. About 8 years ago, I opened Upgrade Labs underneath Arnold Schwarzenegger's office in Santa Monica, California. And I wanted to take the $1 million worth of equipment that allowed me to make my body do what it wanted and make it available for everyone else. And I learned a lot. When people say they want to be healthy or even young in the context of anti-aging, there's actually 5 things that they're thinking about that line up nicely with yours, but they're all with a health lens. Some people want muscle. Some people want their cardiovascular system to work better. Some people want their brain to work better. Some people want their energy to be higher and to lose weight. And some people want to be able to manage stress better, to actually train the stress response of the body. And that's the framework for Smarter Not Harder, because for each of those things, depending on which one matters to you the most right now, you can go to the chapter in the book and figure out which technologies allow you to get that signal in most quickly. And the underlying magic, the new finding around aging, around transforming your body, is that the body responds to the type of stress and the shape of the stress. And if you want to make yourself change really quickly, what you do is you turn the stress on really quickly, like exercising really fast, but as hard as you can go. And then as soon as that happens, even within 10 seconds, you stop. And then you quickly return to parasympathetic rest and relax mode. And what you're telling the body is, hey, body, a tiger jumped out somewhere and was chasing me and I got away in 10 seconds. Good thing I got away, and good thing I have enough building blocks of nutrition, like Naveen talked about. Good thing I have enough energy, since there's not a famine right now, since my gut bacteria are working right, And since I got away from the tiger, let me make the body stronger right now, and it'll do it. But if instead of that, saying, well, I got away from the tiger, but I'm in a spin class and there's a sweaty lady in the front yelling at me, I got to pedal some more, pedal some more. Now you increase your stress, and the body looks at the stress and goes, I think the tiger's still chasing this body in here. So then they stop turning off improvement technologies in the body, and then they start turning on stress and inflammation. And it happens very quickly, to the point that one of the technologies in Smarter Not Harder that I talk about, if you do 5 minutes 3 times a week of cardio without sweating, it actually works 6 times better than doing an hour 5 days a week. 15 minutes versus 5 hours, and you get 6 times better results just by shaping the stress signal into your body. And that slope of the curve biology, it's true for everything. It's precision, it's customization. I do that with an AI-driven bicycle at Upgrade Labs that allows that to happen that quickly. And so understanding that we're all unique, that we all need precision for stuff like that, and it's different for you versus the person sitting next to you, that's what's missing. And I would remind you, if you don't have an Upgrade Labs facility in your neighborhood, you can open one. Go to ownandupgradelabs.com and you can sign up to be a franchisee. There are dozens of these opening across the US right now. So this is a way to actually be able to train your brain, to be able to train all of those other systems that we talked about. And what you get is you get younger. And of course, doing a Viome test before and after, what do you think you're going to see in your aging? The Viome age is going to look better than ever before.
Well, first of all, Dave, I mean, I want to recap because I think we're getting to the last 7 minutes here. So what have we discussed here? What is health? Health is essentially not just simply lack of symptom or lack of a disease. Health is really about body's way of able to deal with the stress, right? So it's not that when you're healthy that you won't catch flu. You may still get flu, but it at least will have no very minimal impact on you. It doesn't mean you may not catch COVID. Even if you catch COVID, you won't end up in the hospital. And that's the health. Health is not lack of disease or somehow preventing the disease. Think of food and nutrition as a, if I may say, that's probably the wrong word, is a way to prevent the disease from happening. It is a way to keep your body healthy so it's able to deal with the things that cause the chronic diseases. It's able to deal with the things so you don't develop the heart disease, so to be able to develop, not have diabetes or obesity. There's no reason for our body to actually be sick. There is nothing. As a matter of fact, it only gets sick because we stop listening to the signal. Every time our cells are sending signals of desperation, please stop doing this. Please stop feeding me this stuff. Please don't do this, right? And we don't listen to those signals. And when we don't listen to the signals, actually the system breaks down. And that's where we have the symptoms of disease. So if you wait until you have symptom of a disease, it's already been happening for 5-10 years. And the things that biohacking does and the things we do at Viome are actually listening to those signals in the body. And these are chemical signals. So we're looking at all of these chemical signals and saying, oh my God, body is telling you this. This is what we need to now listen and translate those signals in a way for consumers to know what to do. Based on these signals, don't eat these foods, and here is why. Eat these foods, and here is why. Enjoy these foods, and here is why. Minimize these foods, and here is why. Take these supplements in these ingredients, in this dosages. Take these postbiotic, prebiotic, and probiotics, and don't take anything else. So we literally give you what you need and nothing else, right? And that, to me, is the key to living healthier and longer, is to be able to build that health. And that health is what we call the biological age. So I think one of the questions I was looking in the Q&A was, what's the difference between biological age and a chronological age? Chronological age is simply from the time you are born, the number of years the earth has gone around the sun. So we call them 1 year. Every time the earth goes around the sun, another year. So that tells you how many times the earth has gone around the sun. That's your chronological age. It has nothing to do with biological age. Biological age is how well your body is performing. Is it performing as if you're 40 or 39 or 50 or 60 or 70? And if you're wondering, how do we calculate the biological age? It's actually looking at this massive amount of data. So we have these 500,000 people that represent the whole population of the humanity. And they're growing, by the way, every month, another 50,000, 100,000 people. So it's really growing the sample size lots. And when you do that, we are able to now look at what does all the biomarkers of the people look like? What is their saliva biomarkers, their stool biomarkers, their blood biomarkers of 18 years, 19 years, 20 years, and literally all the way to 99 years, right? All the people that we've tested. And when you come along and say, oh, your biomarkers are exactly similar to someone who is 42, or they're very similar to who is 52. And that's literally how we calculate the biological age.
It's actually a very elegant way of calculating biological age because you're looking at a huge number of broad things instead of zooming in on it. It's kind of like if you had two cars and you wanted to look at them, you say, look, I'm just going to really get a microscope. I'm going to look at how much scratches are on the paint. And it's going to tell you pretty good how old the car is. But you're saying, well, I'm going to look at the paint, but I'm also going to look at all these other areas. And I'm going to say the combination of the wear on the fan belts and all the other pieces of the car. That's a really good tell. So you don't have to be laser focused on just one part. The systemic view, I find when it comes to biohacking and anti-aging and just making your body do what you want, it's the whole system. It's not one part of the system. And we can zoom in and tune one part, but then that has all these other changes that you wouldn't even expect. So the Viome perspective on aging is interesting, and it's an aging test that I trust to figure out how old I am and just to see is what I'm doing working. Because if I change my workout routine, or maybe I switch up something in my diet and I do it for a year and I think it's working, but it's when I was a raw vegan, that messed me up royally. If I'd have had a Viome test, it would have told me right away, Dave, you're actually depleting your minerals. Don't do that.
So there's a gentleman here, Jason, who is asking that he cannot sleep more than 3 to 4 hours. Is this a mental issue or is it a physical issue? Well, Jason, I want to just tell you that it is, if you just Google sleep and microbiome, that your circadian rhythm actually is controlled both by your circadian rhythm in your brain and also the circadian rhythm of your microbiome. So what time you eat, when you wake up, actually changes that. So when you wake up early and you get the first sunrise, your circadian rhythm resets itself. We say, okay, now the day has started. And then it starts to make slowly the melatonin to know when it's time for you to fall asleep. When you eat, it changes the circadian rhythm of the microbiome and it starts to adjust when you're going to fall asleep. So always stop eating 3 hours before you want to sleep. So I eat early, I go to sleep by 9 p.m. That means I don't eat after 6 p.m. And that gives my body to know now I have a couple of hours before I go to bed. And it basically starts to digest the food, because when I'm sleeping, my digestion does not work. And that allows, when I'm sleeping, my body, and when during the sleep, it removes all the toxins from the body. Your brain is literally taking the short-term memory, putting them into long-term memory, removing all the toxins from the body. And the sleep is necessary. So I would say part of the sleep is your microbiome. And if you adjust your gut and you adjust the things, your body, you will actually sleep better. Right? What do you have on that, David?
In the typed answer, I gave a URL where I have all of my notes on sleep there for people. What I would say is you're 100% correct. The circadian biology shows that eating before the sun goes down really can improve your sleep quality. I found about a doubling of my deep sleep when I do that, especially if I do it for multiple nights in a row. But waking up in the middle of the night, there's a couple of causes. And one of them is definitely tied to your gut bacteria. When your metabolism doesn't work because your gut bacteria is broken or for another reason, you tend to have a blood sugar crash. And Viome tests are really good at predicting whether you're going to have hypoglycemia. But when your blood pressure crashes, usually around 3 in the morning, this happens a little bit more often with women than men, that crash means the body says, oh no, emergency, I'm out of energy that I need to sleep and to clean my brain. And then it thinks to itself, how do I get more sugar? It says, how about this? Why don't I give you cortisol and adrenaline, which makes sugar? It'll also give you a midnight snack craving, either one of those. That's your body saying, I'm out of energy. But if you're waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning and you have racing thoughts and you're a little bit sweaty and heart's racing, that's because you ran out of blood sugar and your body had a stress response to it. And if you have cortisol and adrenaline, your blood sugar goes up, but your sleep goes away. So the hack for that, if your Viome test says that you tolerate it, is about a tablespoon of raw honey before you go to bed, even after dark, just a tablespoon, not a lot. This can prop up something called liver glycogen and solve the problem for you. But if you have yeast going on, that's not the right hack for you. And you might end up needing to have collagen or an amino acid called glycine. And all that's in that URL. And yes, it's a funny URL. It's meant to be a joke. Sleepwithdave.com. It's free. I'm not trying to sell anything. It's just everyone asking about sleep. This is everything I know about sleep. So it's a good way to do it. I will tell you though, if your gut bacteria are broken, they will wake you up. And you have to know what's going on with that. They do have their own circadian rhythm. And if you have something like yeast, it's going to cause stress. If you have even some kind of the parasitic stuff. So I was not successful in improving my sleep until I understood what was going on in my gut. And when I say I was unsuccessful, I used to sleep 6 or 7 hours and I would get 5 minutes of deep sleep and 5 minutes of REM sleep. Now I get 2 hours of each one on a good night in 6.5 hours. If I don't control my gut bacteria, I don't control the lights in my house, all the circadian stuff that affects my gut bacteria, it doesn't work. So I would say get a Viome test and see what's going on in there, because that's a part of your problem.
Well, today, first of all, I think we ran out of time here, Lisa. So
yeah, I do want to say we are at time. Do you want to answer a couple more questions? What would you like to do?
I think what we should do is, if you can get people to send their email with the questions to you, if you can give them an email address where they can send a question to you, we will make sure we can answer them for you. Dave and I will be happy to answer. I just don't want to go too far over the time. It's already 3 minutes over here. But this recording is going to be available, Lisa, for people who, I think some people had to drop off at 4 o'clock sharp. We can send it to them.
Yes, absolutely. They'll get a follow-up email with the recording so they can watch this whole presentation, and the reports do have their information so we can contact them and answer their questions.
Wonderful. First of all, I want to thank everyone on the call for joining us, and we will probably do more of these things together so that we can continue to impart the knowledge. Remember, 1 hour is not enough. We have probably so much to tell you. So I want to thank you, Dave, first of all, for doing it. And I enjoy, this is a part of you and I just, learning from each other, riffing off each other and having some fun together.
All right, guys, get your Viome test. If you liked what we talked about, this book is just coming out right now, Smarter, Not Harder. I sure would appreciate it if you'd support my work by reading it. You're going to get hundreds of hours of your life back, and you can prove it works with a Viome test.
Yeah, and I think, first of all, Dave, I highly recommend the book. I read it and I was just absolutely amazed by the amount of information you put in there. And anyone, if you have nearby Upgrade Lab, please go check it out. The cryo works amazing. It, hyperbaric chamber. I mean, the amount of stuff out there is just phenomenal. I enjoy it every time I get to go there. So I highly recommended you guys to go do that. If there are any questions about Viome, please fire them off. And again, this is not for Dave or I to sell you anything. It is for us to give you the information you need to stay healthy. That's all we care about. Your health matters to us. And here we are to give you that information you need. Neither one of us actually need the damn money. God has been very kind to each one of us.
Yeah, this is about a mission. I had an incredibly wrecked gut. It's fixed now. Thank you, Naveen, for all the work you're doing. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this. It's fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. And thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll see everybody again very soon.
Bye-bye.